The banged-up New Orleans Saints are about to host the Denver Broncos on Thursday Night Football, and the Denver Broncos are about to roll. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso, with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today as I am every Thursday by Locked On NFL expert, the data queen, Michelle Majuk. On today's show, we are going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers' crazy quarterback decision. We're also going to talk about which team is the best in the NFC North, and me and Michelle might disagree on that. But first, we're going to talk about this Thursday night football matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the Denver Broncos. And Michelle, I think that the Broncos are going to roll in this one. First, I do want to thank you guys for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and Crossover Thursday is brought to you by Prize Picks. Make sure you download the Prize Picks app. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Michelle, I got to tell you, looking at this game, it may not be the most tantalizing game that we have on the Thursday night football schedule. And a lot of that has to do with the New Orleans Saints. Right now, they're just incredibly banged up. Obviously, no Derek Carr, no Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed, no Taysom Hill even to make that an interesting thing to watch. They got injuries on the offensive line. I just don't know how the New Orleans Saints are going to be able to compete in this one.
It's going to have to just be Alvin Kamara, like over and over and over and over. And that's the only chance they have to win this game. And Kamara's going to have the game of his life because the Broncos defense is playing really, really well. Fourth in the league in points per game, fourth in total yards per game allowed as well. Broncos are playing such boring football. Like, they're not a fun team to watch. Their offense is not good. They're averaging 5.5 yards per pass attempt. Like, they're just stinking and dunking their way. They don't have any exciting weapons. Their run game's not exciting. They're going to get it done with their defense against Spencer Rattler, who has nobody to throw to. Poor guy.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for a rookie quarterback with a beat-up offensive line and all his best weapons basically out right now. And that's why, I look at the Broncos, and I think they really can play a conservative game plan here. Let the defense win. Their special teams has been good so far this year. And on the offensive side of the ball, I think they're going to have the opportunity to run the football, which makes it easier for Bo Nix. And that's something that my guy Cody and Sayer from Locked On Broncos talked about before this game.
Find a way to run the ball. Like, that's going to be the number one thing. You want to help out your rookie quarterback. You want to open things up in the playbook, be able to run the ball. But Sarah, it's not as just simple as us saying, hey, they have to run the ball well. It's you have to execute within the structure of the offense on a consistent basis. When I did my film review over at Mile High Sports on Denver's offense in the first half, you fundamentally see just missed blocks, getting out leverage, or just getting beat in a one-on-one that impacted the run game in a negative facet. Well, then you go up tempo, you start rattling off some big runs, and then you fumble the ball, or you have a penalty that backs you up. Like, Denver's going to have to avoid the self-inflicted wounds this week. That, in my opinion, is priority number one. Avoid the SIWs, because that right there derailed them against the Chargers.
And look, it would derail them against the Saints as well. You look at last week, the Saints got 3 interceptions of Baker Mayfield in the second quarter, and that's what allowed them to get back into that game and ultimately take a lead. But I look at the other stats here. I mean, Tampa Bay ran the ball for 270 yards against the Saints en route to 51 points. Now, I'm not expecting the Broncos to score 51 points, but with that sort of porous run defense, it's going to make it even easier for the Broncos to protect their rookie quarterback, honestly, to limit their rookie quarterback who has had his ups and downs so far. The Broncos can just come in there, run the football, play great defense like they always do, and I think they're going to come out with a pretty easy win over the Saints.
I don't know how easy it'll be. Like, I do expect the Broncos to win. I think it'll be a closer game than some might expect. Just before the fact that the Saints did allow so many points, allow so many rushing yards last week, they're embarrassed from that, right? They're coming back home. they're going to play much better. We see this all the time when a defense is that bad, right? And they allow that many points, that many yards. They come back the next week and figure it out, where it's just it's going to be much harder for the Broncos. And they might say, okay, let's run the ball. Javonte Williams is not a good running back. Like, he just can't get it going. Audric Estime, their rookie running back, he got to play his first game last week. Very little usage because it was his first game in the NFL. Right. I would love to get to see him, what he can do. Give him the ball more, because you already know what you got out of the other guys. Nothing. So let's see what Audric Estime can do.
Fair enough. And look, I do get I guess let's call it like the psychological impact of it, where you got smoked last week, and that always gives you a little bit of bump coming into the next game because you're just more focused, more angry, all of that. But I think there's a psychological factor on the other side that could counter that out, and that's Sean Payton getting his revenge, going back to New Orleans. And look, I throw around the term revenge anytime there's, a person or a player or a coach going against their old team. I'm sure Sean Payton isn't mad at the New Orleans Saints. He had great times there. But at the end of the day, we know the way that professional athletes think. We know the way that professional coaches think. And there's always that little extra something when you go against a team that you used to coach or play for. So while I do think that you're correct, the Saints will have that extra motivation because of their performance last week, that could almost be countered by the motivation that the Broncos players are going to have to win this one for their head coach. And that's why I am going to say this. Right now, the line is the Broncos are 2.5-point favorites on the road against the Saints. I am hammering that line, and I'm going to pat myself on the back one more time. I hit every single bet that me and Ross talked about on FanDuel Friday last week. So I'm on a bit of a roll right now. I think that the under in this game, it's 36.5 points. I would hit the under in this game. I think the Broncos defense is too good to give up too many points. And I like the Broncos in this one to cover by at least 3. So I'm going Broncos -2.5. I'm going under 36.5, even though that's pretty low. I think we get a low scoring game in this one, but I think the Broncos win by more than 3.
So I want to counterpoint, or what am I trying to say here? Your point about the revenge game, right? I don't think this is a revenge game for Sean Payton. He's the one that retired on his team. He's the one that then came back and wanted to be traded, and he got traded to the Broncos. The Saints players who are still there, who were under Sean Payton, this is a revenge game for them. Like, you left us, and now we have the worst head coach. Like, not the worst, but a pretty terrible one in Dennis Allen. Here, like, these are the guys that are going to feel the revenge, and they're going to be out there to say, kind of like, screw you, Sean Payton, like, you left us. And so actually, now that I talk about this, I'm going to take the Saints to win.
Okay,
I really wish they had Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed. That would help a ton. But I think Spencer Rattler will figure it out. There's no Pat Surtain in this game, most likely. So I'm going to go with the Saints.
Well, Michelle, I got to tell you, I think the Broncos are going to win and move to 4-3. But as Bronco fans know, I do not believe in your football team. The Broncos are complete frauds. They are nowhere near as good as their record says, even when they win this game and go to 4-3. But I will say, you have a better record than me picking these Thursday night football games. So it might be time to ride with Michelle, folks. But with that being said, let's talk about some good teams. And there are 4 of them in the NFC North. Which team is the best? I think Michelle might surprise you with which team she thinks is the worst. Can't wait to dive into that. It's Locked On NFL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka rookie card or a Mahomes rookie card, it just isn't in the cards. I like collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from the last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. I love Arena Club because Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pools are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. And the Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent with a full grade rationale provided and explanation for how your card was scored. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, period, because they have the best features in the industry, and they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've used Game Time for football, basketball, baseball tickets, concert tickets, everything. You get a view from your seat so you know what you're going to be looking at. If you toggle on the feature, you're going to get upfront pricing, all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. Make sure that you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Michelle, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about that Thursday night football matchup between the Denver Broncos and the New Orleans Saints, but now we want to move to, let's just say, some more interesting football teams, and they're going to be in the NFC North. And right now, every single team in the NFC North has a winning record. And there's another stat that my guy Luke Braun, the brain, is going to throw on us that highlights just how good the NFC North has been this year as well.
Here's a couple of stats. So if you want to just look at point differential, the Vikings currently lead the league with a plus 63 point differential by strength of schedule, by the way. I believe they've also had the toughest opponents. But the Lions are actually pretty close to the Vikings at plus 60. And then the Bears at plus 47, the Packers at plus 41. Those are your top four. By point differentials, those are your top four teams in the entire National Football League. Number 5 is the Steelers at plus 38, leading the entire AFC. So the entire NFC North is ahead of the entire AFC and the rest of the league. That is insane.
That is insane. And I mean, I thought that the NFC North would be one of the best divisions in football, but it's clear in a way the best division in football right now. Michelle, if you had to rank the NFC North teams from 1 to 4, how would you rank them?
So people aren't going to like this because I'm going to have the Vikings 4th. There's lots of reasons for it. We can dig into it after I get through this, but 4 is going to be the Vikings. 3 will be the Bears, right? I still need to see more from Caleb Williams. That defense is great, but want to see more consistency there. 2 is the Packers. Jordan Love is playing well, but still scary. That defense is still very beatable. And then 1 is the Lions. And I would feel really good about them at 1 if Aiden Hutchinson didn't suffer that brutal injury that's going to keep him out the whole year. But I still, even with that injury, I'm going to keep him at 1.
Wow. The Vikings at number 4. Well, Michelle, I got to tell you, I disagree because my ranking is Vikings at number 1, and I feel even more confident about that now because of the Aiden Hutchinson injury. I would go Packers number 2. I would go Lions number 3 because of what I think that injury does to their defense, and then I would put the Bears at number 4. The Vikings, again, I know that Sam Darnold has played well, but not great. I think that, he's not like an MVP candidate like some people try to make out. I don't think that's fair. They're more a good complementary football team. The Packers, I think, are just going to start to get better on the defensive side of the ball. That pass rush can't be as bad as it's been for the beginning of the season. I just think Aiden Hutchinson is so important to what the Lions do. I don't trust the rest of their pass rush. I know Aleem McNeil got the new deal this week and everything, but I do not think that they're going to have anywhere close to a replacement for Aiden Hutchinson. And with how important I value pass rush when it comes to football discussions, the Lions offense is going to be good, but with that loss to Aiden Hutchinson, I think it hurts them so much. So I dropped them to 3 for that, expecting the Packers to play better. And then I put the Bears at 4 for the same reason you have them at 3. I think they're a good team. I think they're a rising team, but I simply don't trust them as much when they play better teams. So it'll be fun to watch those teams play, but interesting that we're so divided on the Vikings and then the Lions, of course.
Let me explain why I have the Lions at 4. It's because the interceptions they're getting.
The Vikings.
The Vikings, yes. The Vikings at 4. It's because the interceptions they've been getting on defense, that's just not sustainable, right? They're averaging
Right.
2.2 interceptions per game. The next closest is the Saints at 1.6. Like, that's going to come down, and that's where the Vikings are getting all of their points. 35% of their points have come after their defense got a turnover for them. When the Vikings get the ball after their opponent punts, they're averaging just 21.8 yards per drive. That's 29th in the NFL, only better than the Titans, the Dolphins, and the Raiders. The Lions, on the other hand, are averaging 43 yards per drive after their opponent punts. That's more than double what the Vikings are doing. The Vikings are going 3 and out on 40% of their drives when they receive the ball on a kickoff or a punt. That's 27th in the NFL. The whole reason this team is on fire right now is because of these interceptions. Sam Darnold is not going to get it done if the interceptions come down. I don't trust him at all. This defense is actually pretty weak at covering the pass. I mean, they're allowing a ton of passing yards. And as soon as those giveaways or those turnovers go away or come down, this team's going to come down. Now, their schedule is insanely easy, so they're going to make the playoffs. But I don't trust them at all once they hit the playoffs.
Well, one thing I would say, too, is they've had the lead a ton this year, and I think that helps into the turnover aspect when you're up by so much and teams have to be more aggressive and they have to play left-handed or one-handed, whatever you want to call it. So I think that if you get the Vikings down by 10 points or so, I would be curious to see how they play if they get down early in one of these games. And I think that could lend to what you're talking about, some of the skepticism you have. I do want to ask this question, though, while we're talking NFC. So obviously the NFC North is very good, but if you had to pick, and Halloween's right around the corner, so let's say this. If you had to pick the scariest team in the NFC outside of the NFC North, what would you pick? And based on your sweatshirt and maybe some of the decor I'm seeing, I might know your answer.
It's easily the 49ers, and I think they're the scariest team, even including all the NFC North opponents.
Mm-hmm.
I know their record right now doesn't say that they're the scariest, but they could so easily be 5-1 if they don't give up 2 10-point fourth quarter leads against the Rams and the Cardinals. Like, yeah, they fell apart. They haven't had Christian McCaffrey this year. He's coming back in the next couple of weeks. Once they have him, the red zone issues that they've had will fix, and they're already one of the best offenses in the league. Even with those red zone issues, their defense also not as good as they used to be, but this offense is just too good. They have too many weapons on both sides of the ball. They're definitely the scariest team in the
And
NFC.
when you look at the rest of their division, the Rams are 1-4. The Cardinals, although they beat the 49ers, are 2-4. The Seahawks, which we both did not believe in the Seahawks, and now they have immediately come back down to earth at 3-3 after 3 straight losses. It's not like the 49ers' bad start to the season is really going to be very punitive when you consider that. I have to say this, though, Michelle. I got to say the Philadelphia Eagles. And while they can't be trusted, and I think their coaching is a disadvantage to them, they just have such good players. Like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, the players they have on the offensive line. They have playmakers on the defense. Not as many playmakers on the defense as I'm sure that they would want. But once they get healthier and if the coaching just gets a little bit better, they just have the pieces where they can have a disadvantage in coaching, but because some of the players they have on their roster are just so good, they could just out-execute you and beat you on a day. Like A.J. Brown can catch a ball at his hip for 2 touchdowns. Like, they just have players that scare me. So I will throw the Eagles into that conversation as well, even if I don't trust the coaching. But speaking of trust, the Steelers clearly do not trust their starting quarterback because they're looking at making a change despite leading the AFC North. We're going to talk about that now. It's Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, yes, I'm talking to you, NFL fans. You can start the second quarter of the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, if you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you go to the FanDuel Sportsbook app, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play information, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. It's an all-encompassing hub of football information. And to make it even better, right now you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And if you're looking to place that $5 bet, Denver Broncos money line, I'm just saying. Make sure to check out America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel, and you can do that at FanDuel.com. All right, Michelle, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Thursday night football matchup, which I don't think is going to be a very good football game. We talked about the best team in the NFC North, the worst team in the NFC North, which was fun as well. But now we got to talk about this Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that I know you know well. And they're making a curious decision here. No lie. It looks like, now we don't have confirmation, but it looks like they are going to go to Russell Wilson, despite scoring 32 points last week, being 4-2 and leading the AFC North. And my guy Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers talked about that decision-making process.
Like you, even live, I could see there were guys open. And when I went back and looked at the All-22, I'm like, oh boy, are there guys? So, like, I know we keep saying that the Steelers don't have a second receiver. I'd like to kind of see what Calvin Austin would be like if he got some of these passes, because he is cooking people in the secondary and just not getting targeted. Between him, Darnell Washington, Pat Freiermuth, and if George Pickens get his stuff together, like, maybe the Steelers actually would have a passing offense if the ball could get out on time down the field consistently. And if Russell Wilson gives you a chance to see that, it's hard to deny that.
It's probably also hard to make a change at quarterback when you just scored 32 points in a win. Like, I think that's just right or wrong. I think that's just hard to do. I think Justin Fields is probably going to have to lose the job, but yeah. I don't think he's given himself a lot of leeway either.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like Justin Fields has been absolutely incredible and it would just be purely insane to sit him down. But I do think it would be a bit crazy to take the starting spot away from him after what the Steelers have done through the first 6 games. There is no rule, Michelle, that says that you can't replace a guy in the middle of a game. Like, I know you want to get a guy first team reps and have the same plan. And I think the plan for Russell Wilson and Justin Fields probably is different. But I just think that the Steelers are playing the Jets. The Steelers are at home. I think Justin Fields deserves the opportunity to continue to start. And if he's playing poorly in the middle of the game, then there's no rule that says you can't sit him down and then put Russell Wilson in and then go with Russell Wilson the next week. I just think it sends the wrong message to the team when you're 4-2 and you score 30 points and you take Justin Fields out. And now Najee Harris was a DNP on Wednesday. If he isn't there to supplement the run game, Justin Fields can help you in that department. I just think there's no rule that says they can't make a change in the middle of the game, and Justin Fields deserves the chance to continue to start.
So I have a fun research note for you. If Justin Fields
of course you do. The data queen.
If Justin Fields does not start on Sunday, he would be the first starting quarterback in the Super Bowl era to lead a team to 4-2 record or better and not start the team's 7th game, excluding, being injured, right? The quarterbacks that missed due to injury. So this would be, making some history here. If Fields does not get the start and they go with Russell Wilson, like our boy Chris Carter, he's talking about maybe Russell Wilson will hit the guys faster. I mean, Russell Wilson holds on to the ball just like Justin Fields. Right. And he's just completely ignoring the part where there is no time to look down the field. This offensive line could not be worse. Broderick Jones is the worst tackle in the league. Every single time he gets beat off whatever side he's on, because they keep moving him back and forth, left and right. But especially when he's on the right, oh my goodness, he's atrocious. Russell Wilson does not have the mobility that Justin Fields has. And Fields has saved the Steelers so many times with his legs, getting out of the pocket. And that's why they're able to, stay on the field. I won't be surprised if Russell Wilson gets sacked 5 times in this game if he starts, especially because the Jets secondary is great. So guys are not going to be open. And then also, like, he's going to be rusty. We see these quarterbacks come in to start the year so rusty, right? And now Russell Wilson's just going to get thrown in. This makes no sense to me. I know I have 49ers stuff on me and on my walls if you're watching, but I'm a diehard Steelers fan. That's my number 1 team. And I'm frustrated by this decision, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that another factor to it is not only are the Jets cornerbacks and secondary good, but the Steelers wide receiver group is terrible. And their most talented player is given very little effort out there. So like it just compounds the issue. And the only thing that can help that is a mobile quarterback that can make something out of nothing. And that's not Russell Wilson anymore. So I'm with you. I think it would be a bit of a mistake to start Russell Wilson, but in practice this week on Wednesday, he was taking the first team reps. And it looks like that's the way the Steelers are going to go. So it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out. It's on Sunday Night Football, so I'm going to be here to break that down after the game happens. Can't wait to talk about that. Me and Gino will be breaking it down. But on tomorrow's show, me and the mastermind, Ross Jackson, will bring you a FanDuel Friday, going over our favorite bets and some of the biggest games of the week. But that is going to do it for today's show. For my co-host, Michelle, the Data Queen, Majuk, and me, the Madman, Tyler Rowland. We thank you guys for tuning in. Get subscribed, stay subscribed, throw a thumbs up on the video if you're watching on YouTube. Throw a comment down below what teams you're looking for this week. As I tell you guys every single day, stay safe out there.
Bye, y'all.